Hi everyone and welcome into this new video. This is part 2 of a 3 video series where I will talk about my courses in this first semester of my university experience, and today we are focusing on contemporary history. And I want to repeat one thing from the last video, and that is I do not want to criticize my teachers because in their shoes I wouldn't been able to do any better, so I respect them a lot. So let's go on with the video, and before we start I want to address one more thing, and it regards contemporary history specifically, because I had a dilemma making this video, because this class was extremely interesting and extremely useful for me, but for you, the viewer, I had some troubles to find things that could be applied in your everyday life and practical tips. So even if in this video it doesn't show the usefulness of this course for you, for me it was awesome, it was interesting, and I enjoyed it a lot. So this said, let's go on with the video. So let's try to understand how the course was divided into the partial exams. So the first two were focused on knowledge of historical events. So if we take the 20th century, and that is contemporary history, more or less, first partial exam, first half of the 20th century, so First World War, Second World War, first years of the Cold War, and then the second partial was the second half of the 20th century, so most of the Cold War, Korean War, Vietnamese War, Arab-Israeli conflict, all the crises in South America, and so on. Then the third partial exam was a work on primary sources of history. So what primary sources are direct testimonials of people that wrote about historical events that they lived through. So a letter a soldier wrote from the trenches, recorded conversations between prime ministers of different countries. All these direct testimonials are called primary sources, and it was cool to apply all the knowledge we had acquired on the study of primary sources. And then the final oral exam was a discussion on a book we had to choose among a list of books proposed by the teachers. The one I chose was called Italy's Divided Memory by John Foote, and it was very cool, and I will talk about that later. This is the practical part of the video, and I have to say that knowing history in general is very useful, but I can just tell you like all different events that are important, or I can tell you go read a history book. I cannot do that. So here I will try to give you few useful tips, but they are the most meaningful for me. So the first one is a direct consequence of the Italian educational system in high school, because I studied in Italy in high school and 1 year in the US. So what I'm saying is mostly referred to Italy. I don't know how it works in the rest of the world. But here, all high school history classes stop at World War II, and there is nothing after that. So going from a period of complete destruction and conflict is hard to understand how we got to the point today where you can go from Cabo da Roca in Portugal to Tromsø in Norway, which is the longest journey you could take in Europe without showing your passport once. And that is thanks to Schengen. But if you just stop, it is hard to understand how this process came by. And you have to go a step beyond and understand that history doesn't stop when the classes stop. And there is a mindset that I want to apply. For my parents, and if you are my age, your parents, that is second nature, because they lived in that period, so they saw the development from Berlin Wall and East-West conflict to a process of globalization. But for us, you cannot allow yourself to stop knowing history when your high school classes finish. And then the second important thing that I want you to know is that divided memory exists. And divided memory is the main concept of the book I read for the oral exam, and that is when there is a division between what people remember and what the states tell about its history, or what other countries say about your country's history. And dividing memory in Italy happened a lot. The main example of dividing memory is, in my opinion, September 8th, 1943. And that is the day of the Cassabile armistice, so the day that for Italy, war stopped, World War II. Or that is what Italian history says. If you ask other people, the war started on September 8th for most of them, because Italy was not a battleground for most of World War II, but after the armistice, the German troops that were on Italian soil stayed there and fought really hard. So there is a division here, as I said, dividing memory from what the states says, peace, and what people remember, the beginning of the war. And then it doesn't just happen between people and state, but also between people themselves, because on September 8th, most people were out celebrating, because it was the end of the fascist party and the fascist era and the dictatorship. So for most people, it was a day of joy, of going out and celebrate, but not for all of them. Some Italians were killed that day by Italian troops. And I want, if you're interested in this topic, there is the Cefalonia killings of Italian troops, Cefalonia killings. Search it on the internet, you will find history and other analysis of what happened, but it's not just that, because one family friend, her father, was deported to death camps on September 8th because it was part of the Italian army, and on September 8th the Italian troops went from German allies to German enemies in one day. And what the German troops did was deport most of the Italian troops that they didn't kill or that they didn't care about. So, as I said, a division of memory. The book was about Italy, as I said, but just be aware that it is not restricted to Italy, and for every event, it could be COVID, it could be a crash in the market, every event will always carry different memories of people, and not all of these memories appear in textbooks, in biographies, in autobiographies. The minority most of the time gets forgotten. And it's not just about the loser, because there is a saying, winners write history. But here it is not about the loser's memory being erased. So just be aware of that. It is very important. Now we are at the final part of the video, and I am going to give you my final thoughts and the grades I got. So my final grade was 27 out of 30. I am absolutely happy with that grade because it was not an easy class, especially the first two partials that were half of the final grade. You had to know a lot of different events, so it was not an easy class. But I found it very interesting, and I can say that it is, I'm happy to say that, because in Italy we start studying history when we are 6, and then in middle school and in high school we mostly repeat things that we already know. So for me to learn new things and improve my knowledge and expand that in an interesting way, I am very happy to say that that was one of my best classes this semester. And then the book. The book was just amazing. It was full of stories, personal stories, things that you don't learn in high school. It gave me a new perspective toward history. It was just amazing. And if you want an expanded video just on the book, just write in the comments and I will provide. And I also want to say that the other books in the list looked very interesting. So it would not be strange if in a month, a year, I don't know, I will still go back to the list and maybe read other books that I didn't choose. But this brings me to the end of the video. If you're still watching, thank you, I'm very grateful. Please leave a like, subscribe, and thank you again for watching. I'm just starting, so if you're actually watching this, thank you so much. And I will see you in the next one.